Today's episode is proudly sponsored and brought to you by our good friends over at Pet Matrix Premium Canine Supplements. Straight Up Dog Talk is so excited to be partnered with Pet Matrix and jump into their family. After exhausting several other pet supplement brands, I am getting the support and results I have been searching for both Toby and Fitz. Pet Matrix supports all three pillars of canine wellness using their Cell Matrix delivery. It delivers nutrition directly into the cell. If you're looking for a supplement that pairs with nature and science, look no further and get your dog on Pet Matrix today. This stuff works, period. Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk, the podcast where pet parents, pet guardians, and pet professionals come together to dive into real issues in dog parenting. From controversial training methods to sensitive health topics, we're getting raw and real about what it means to care for our canine companions. Join us every Wednesday for unfiltered conversations, expert insights, and personal stories that will make you laugh, cry, and grow as a pet parent. No topic is off limits and no question goes unanswered. You won't get one perspective here. You'll get them all because every dog is different and every human is too. You can follow along on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Straight Up Dog Talk or by visiting www.straightupdogtalk.com. Tune in from any of your favorite podcast platforms. Welcome to Straight Up Dog Talk. I'm Em, and we are back again with another amazing guest this week. We have Krista, who is the mom of Han Solo and Carly Rae. Some of you may be familiar with Han as he is a dog that is very talented in many ways. He can do so many tricks. I think the thing that really caught me onto Han was either the skateboarding or the basketball. I'm not quite sure, but we'll let Krista tell you guys a little bit about that. So welcome to the show. And why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and the dogs?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'm Krista. I'm the mom of the dogs from Healer Point, Han Solo and Carly Rae. And I've always been obsessed with animals since I was a little kid, obsessed with dogs, into horseback riding, and clearly still into both things. But the dogs have certainly become my full-time hobby. Absolutely love it. I just do it for fun, and I have 2 high-energy dogs, so they also need it.
I know that something that we've talked about behind the scenes is reactivity. I know this isn't something that you talk a lot about on your platform, but I did want to bring it up because you do have a high energy breed, and then you have another high energy breed. And high energy and reactivity kind of go hand in hand a little bit because a lot of people don't know that they need an outlet for their dogs. And then, of course, we end up with reactivity. So you had mentioned to me that Han is a little bit reactive, which surprised me because, like I said, you don't really show it on your Instagram account. But let's talk a little bit about what kind of reactivity you see from Han and what you do to help him with it.
Yeah, sure. I post about it a little bit, not a ton, just because I don't want the page to be all about dog reactivity. That's not the goal of my page. The goal of the page is posting fun tricks and general lifestyle things with my dogs. But yes, Han is a reactive dog. If someone asked me, is he reactive? I would still say he's reactive because that was his natural instinct, right? And natural inclination as a young dog. But it's highly managed. We've worked for years. We spent a solid first 3 years of his life in professional group training classes, getting help from them, getting help from his breeder. And then through that, also building our network with folks that you meet through class, your peers and other students that might have more experience than you. So we built this really nice network that was able to support us through that journey and learning how to manage reactivity, what you can do to help. And Han's in an absolutely fantastic spot now. And as you mentioned, even though I don't post about it a lot, I think if you saw us in person walking down the street, you would never know that he was a reactive dog or had issues with that, which is great. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but I do like that you mentioned the time investment because it really is a time investment. Fitz is 7 and we've been working on it his whole life too, more specifically the last 3 or 4 years now, because I didn't know what it was before. I just thought that he just didn't like other dogs or that he was shy when it came to people, but he's just selective and that's fine, but he does react. And for Fitz, it's more of the, I'm going to bark at you and all the hair on my back is going to stand up and then I'm going to retreat. Reactivity looks different on every dog. So how does it look on Han?
With Han, it started out pretty young. He was probably around 7 months old, maybe even 6. Tough to remember that far back now that he's 8.5. But he would be on leash, and if another dog was coming by, he would just all out lunge, barking, hair up, growling sounds, pretty intense. So it would come out in that way. And then it would also happen at the vet. We definitely struggles with, I just want to walk around my neighborhood and have my dog be chill and be able to do loose leash walking. And then we had to work through going to the vet and being able to have a vet visit without sedation.
Yeah, that's something that we struggle with too, was vet visits. And finally, we got a really good, solid muzzle routine in, and that just makes things so much easier for us because he's comfortable in the muzzle and he knows to put his chin in my lap and just kind of hang out while they do their thing. We still have trouble with ears, but I think they can have one thing that they still get pretty upset about, right? They can't be perfect.
When you think about it from their perspective, it's a lot to ask. Us as humans, going to the doctor can be really scary, or the dentist, any of those things, even though you know what's going on, you know they're trying to help you. So from the dog's point of view, they're going into this situation and they don't understand. They don't know why this person's poking and prodding at them or trying to get them to lay down on their side. So it's a pretty scary situation. But yeah, exactly what you said. If you work on building in the muzzle as a positive thing, not a big deal. I definitely am of the opinion that every dog should be muzzle trained, whether or not they have any issues, because God forbid, right? You have some crazy incident happen where the dog does start getting nervous about something. You have that to fall back on. They already know the muzzle. They're already secure with it. And it will help you to work through whatever issues you're having. Our vet, honestly, fantastic too. So I always try to tell people, build that support network the best that you can, because even our vet, we have a great relationship with them. As soon as Han was showing signs of reactivity as a puppy at the vet, they gave us advice and we were open-minded to it. Rather than getting defensive, let's be open-minded, take this advice and do our best to work on it. When he had his worst reactive episode at the vet, he was probably around 6-7 months old. At this point, he'd never been sedated at the vet. They gave us tips about the muzzle, and then we went back to our professional group trainer class, explained everything that had happened, got advice from them, and talked to his breeder about it, got advice from her, and we combined all these different concepts and made our own little training plan. And we knew, we're like, we have 1 year. So if at his next vet visit, if he's not doing better, he will have to get sedated for blood work. We kept to it. We did our homework. We consistently practiced, and the next year it was night and day, and he's never had to actually be sedated for the vet.
That's incredible. I love that the community is so important, and having a good relationship with your vet is so important. And I also agree with you that every dog should be muzzle trained. Being a vet tech, I can't tell you how many times we would struggle with a dog and then have to sedate it because we couldn't even get a muzzle on it to get it to cooperate for x-rays or whatever, because emergencies happen. Dogs get hit by cars. They fall off of things and break their legs. They get their face stuck in a fence and have to have sutures, all kinds of things. And in order to even take care of the smaller issues, from nail trims to urgent situations where we have to take x-rays or potentially intubate them for surgery, it's a lot of stress and it's very, very scary. And to have a dog that is terrified of the muzzle, is terrified of a kennel, and is terrified of being at the vet, now you're just stacking things up and making it worse. So I think that anything that you can do to make a vet visit easier is fantastic. And learning to implement those things in your day-to-day routine really solidifies those behaviors and those practices, which you have clearly transferred over into Han's tricks, because he can do really simple tricks and he can do really, really extreme level tricks. And that's really why you're here today, is because I'd really like to talk about why you got started, how you got started with his first trick, and maybe some tips and tricks for people who want to get started.
Yeah, sure. So getting started as far as just being interested in tricks is just me being crazy animal lady, which I think a lot of folks in the Instagram dog community totally get. As a kid, I had a little American Eskimo mix, and over the total span of time, I only taught her 10 tricks, but that was in the context of no YouTube existed, no social media, and no professional dog classes. So I was just a kid in the backyard trying so hard to figure out, how can I talk to my dog? That was my dream. I want to be able to talk to my dog and communicate with them. And that's the root of all my trick training, is I'd love to just be able to communicate with animals. And so with her, I kind of figured it out in my backyard. And I think that was really great because it gave me this foundation of patience. I couldn't go look up a quick tutorial on TikTok or Instagram to see, how do I teach my dog to roll over? I had to figure it out myself. And in doing that, I learned that you have to break everything down into the smallest steps possible. So lifting the paw to shake, you'd think that's one step. But in my mind, I'd instantly probably break it down into at least 4, potentially more than that, depending on the dog. And with Han, He's a high energy breed, high drive. Cattle dogs are known for being very smart and liking complex challenges. So I already had that base of being interested in trick training, and there's basically no limit with him, is what I've discovered, which is amazing. His first stuff was super simple. It was just like, give me your left paw, your right paw, spin left, roll over. And then we started getting all these other ideas, just things that either I would think of, sometimes my husband, ideas from his breeder, or just the internet, because now we have that. So I can go, oh, there's all these cool things that we could teach him, like opening the fridge or flushing the toilet. And then I ended up setting this goal of, I'm going to teach my dog 100 tricks. So that was a big thing on my Instagram for a while, was that was listed right under our name. Our goal is 100 tricks. We're at 50 out of 100 right now. And I would update it every time I taught him a new trick. Once we got to 100, I have stopped keeping count. But skateboarding was the 100th, which is really cool. And that's probably the one I'm the most proud of by far. I think it's the most complex because not only is he riding the skateboard and staying on it, but he will actually push with one leg and actively push to keep the board moving.
And he looks so cool. He just has that, I don't know, he's like this chill dude, just, I'm skateboarding. Look at me. Look how cool I am. He just has that vibe to it. I love it. So that was the hardest one. I was going to ask you is if you knew how many tricks, because he knows so many. I wondered if you had any idea. I would have probably stopped counting at 102.
Yeah, so we're roughly, I would say right now, we're probably at about 105 or 106, roughly in that area.
What do you think was the easiest trick besides sit, paws up, high five, things that most people teach their dogs? What do you think was the simplest, harder trick?
Oh, that's, I guess, trying to think of one that most people wouldn't teach because, like you said, sit down, roll over. Those are kind of the classic ones that everyone's going to teach. Probably backing up, even though it seems really basic. I think that's something that probably most people don't teach your dog because why? It's not a basic obedience thing that you're probably thinking to train, but it's a fun one. It's a great challenge for them. It's great for hind end awareness and building that awareness of, hey, I have back legs. So if you are a person that's interested in dog sports or just a little bit of an extra challenge for your dog to think about, that's a really nice one that it's a little more challenging. It's involving the hind end, so they got to think a little bit, but it's not physically taxing. So a lot of dogs can do it. Most probably can. And it's pretty straightforward to teach. I have 2 different tutorials for that one on my Instagram, and it's very simple. It's a 4-step process and just repeating the 4 steps over and over again until they get it.
You're right. It is really difficult. That is one that I asked you for help on, and we're still struggling with it because Fitz has 0 hind end awareness. And even though we've broken it down into all these little steps, I don't think we've gotten past step 2 because every time I do the thing where I take the treat and I drop it to his chest, he spins around instead of his head down or taking a step back. And I'm like, no. It's a very hard one for him. The good thing is that he learned how to spin the other way, which is pretty cool. So we can check that off as an accomplishment. He's still struggling with back up. So yeah, I think that is a harder one to teach, especially when you have a dog that's just kind of all over the place. And it started for me because Toby's a lot smaller than Fitz, and Fitz does not pay attention to where he is, and I don't want him to step on Toby. So I wanted to be able to redirect his back end, and we're still working on it. It is a hard one. What do you think was the easiest one to teach?
Easiest one, and I'm assuming cutting out those basic ones.
Yep, no basic ones.
The easiest one, probably his whisper. And I feel bad because that's by far the most one that people ask me for a tutorial on. And I truly can't give them one because my husband taught him that. And the way he taught him was that Han made that sound one time. He rewarded it for him instantly, had treats nearby. And then my husband did it, made that little like chuffing sound at him, and he mimicked it back, rewarded him again, did that a few times in a row, and boom, it was done, locked down. He knew what it was. That is one that I'm like, I truly don't know what to tell people because I don't know how to get your dog to copy you like Han did. I don't know how to teach that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. We've never attempted whisper. I have rewarded for whisper-like behaviors just to try to get him to repeat them, but we certainly have not come anywhere near accomplishing whisper as a trick. The other one that I heavily reinforce but haven't really gotten is the bow. Just heavily reinforce big stretch. Instead of saying big stretch, just say yes and give that treat. And all of a sudden he's doing that more often, but it's certainly not to trick level. How quickly does Han pick up on things? Obviously, pretty quickly because of what you just said with your husband. But if you were to teach him a trick and really know that it was locked in, how many days do you think he would have to do it before you could say, oh, yep, I guarantee I could pull this out 5 days later and he would remember?
Of course, depends on the complexity, because if I was teaching him to open the fridge and get me a can of soda and bring it to me, that one's going to be longer. But if we were just going for something that I'd consider a nice middle ground trick, not super easy, not crazy hard, most of the times I would say we'll give a little buffer. We'll say 2 weeks. And within that 2 weeks, every day, I'm doing a 15-minute session in the morning and a 15-minute session at night. And that's it. It's not like we're working on it all day. Even though I'm saying it's happening over 2 weeks, it's a half hour total each day. And that's it. That's all you're dedicating to it. I would say that's probably a good average to be like, he 100% has it down solid. I could ask it from a distance. I don't need to be right there luring him. I could be 20 feet away and give him the cue and he's going to do it, is what I'd consider to be locked down.
Yeah, I agree with that. What about when you're teaching him a trick and he struggles? What is your go-to move? Do you go back a step? Do you go forward a step? Or do you try to pivot what you're doing to adjust?
So if he's struggling with something, I will say he has a very, very high tolerance. I don't know the right way to describe it, but he can focus on something that's challenging that he knows he's not quite getting for very long periods of time. Where with Carly, my GSP, much shorter attention span, much shorter time where she's going to reach that ceiling of frustration where she needs a break. Han can work a solid 20 minutes on something, which is pretty crazy, where he knows I still need to work this out. I'm not quite getting it right. But when we get to that point, normally my first thing is we just take a break. I'm like, all right, we'll take a break. We'll maybe do something else, play a little bit, and potentially be just done for the night on that specific thing. I might take full break from training and we'll just be like, hey, let's go upstairs. We're all done tonight. Or I work on stuff that he knows already. And that way it's kind of like, oh, I know all this stuff. Build your confidence back up. We're good. I'm having fun. And then I don't revert back to whatever it was that we were struggling with. I wait till the next day. And in cases where it's something that we're really struggling with a lot, like it's taking a long time to teach something, peekaboo would be one of the ones that for some reason he struggled for a long time with. I took a 4-month break from teaching it at all, came back to it, and then we started making progress. And I actually hadn't even really changed too much the steps I was using to teach it. So sometimes I think he just needs that reset. And I did the same thing with his burrito trick where he rolls himself up in a blanket. Another one that I wasn't expecting him to struggle with because he picks stuff up so fast. But for some reason, he just struggled with that one. Another one I literally took 5-month break from, went to teach it again. He got it within 2 sessions. So
interesting. I think that it's so funny how it seems so simple to us. Grab this blanket and roll over. And to them, just it goes completely over their head. But I like that you either give him a break or you move on to something else that makes him feel good about doing the tricks again. That's highly reinforcing and you want it to be fun. The tricks are supposed to be fun. That's the whole point of it. Also, I think what you were describing was resilience. Fitz is the same way. If he messes up something a couple of times, I know that I can try again 2 or 3 times before we either have to do a different trick or we just have to take a break or something because he does want to get it right. He gets excited about it. I can see Han being that way also. But I think that that's that herding breed. They just have that drive. It's a little bit different than other dog breeds that have less care about those things. And German Shorthairs, I don't know what it is about German Shorthairs and attention span, but unless it is related to hunting and tracking, their attention span is just not there for most things, I find. They're just kind of derpy in that way, and I love them for it.
Yes, yeah, and that's what it's like. I have 2 high energy dogs, and that's the only thing they have in common. They couldn't be more opposite in their personalities and how you work with them and train them. It's a great challenge, though. Han is his own unique experience in training, and Carly is the total opposite end of the spectrum. But it's great for me, right, as an animal lover, to expand my own knowledge and skill set, because with Carly, she just turned 3, and she's got that little bit of an adult brain now starting to sink in, which is awesome, and her attention span is getting better. But it's just a totally different thing with her. So on my page, anyone that follows me will certainly see I post way more trick stuff with Han versus Carly. But I do trick work with Carly as well. But it's also just balancing out what does each dog really like and enjoy. Han loves those super complex, like I'm going to sit here for 20 minutes straight, work on this thinking problem, and I'm going to love it. Carly likes doing the tricks, but for shorter spans of time. So with her, I'll teach her something new. We'll work on it for a couple minutes. Then she gets a 1-minute break and we're throwing the ball around or just kind of messing around and being silly. then we'll work on it another couple minutes. And max for her, a session is probably about 10 minutes. And then she also just wants to run around the yard and play. And she loves just running. She'll run alongside my mountain bike. We have an attachment. So she'll do that, where Han has no interest in really running with the mountain bike. He wants there to be a specific purpose to what he's doing. He wants to understand, why am I doing this? Where Carly doesn't care why she's running next to the bike. She just likes running. So that satisfies her happiness for the day.
That's the most German short hair thing I think I've ever heard. The running, just the running. They love it.
Yes.
Fitz has his only friend outside of Toby is a German short hair, and it's my friend's dog, and they were puppies together. And Scout would just run and Fitz would chase him, but Fitz was not as long-legged as Scout was. So it just always looked so funny because Scout would be way out there and Fitz would just be like trying to keep up. It was so funny. It was so cute. When you teach tricks, do you teach a single trick at a time or do you teach multiple tricks at a time?
Usually mostly one at a time these days. And that's more just for my own brain keeping track of things. I have a full-time job and all these regular human things. So usually it's one at a time. But when Han was younger, and we weren't at this 100, because now I'm also struggle to think of things as well that are completely new to teach him. But the first few years we had him, I would definitely work on 3 or 4 things at a time. And we'd work on one thing one day, the next day maybe I'd work on the other thing and kind of be in parallel like that.
The reason that I ask is because you put videos out where he's doing several tricks in a row. So do you teach him to do the tricks in that order, or do you just do that for the videos and you just randomly pick the tricks so that you can film it?
So the order is honestly, it's probably extremely similar in the videos, but that's only because of my brain kind of goes through them in a similar order. But he knows them to the point where I could ask him in any order at all, and he'll just do it. I imagine if I look back at the videos, there's a familiar pattern in those ones where it's just him sitting on the yoga mat and it's just like down, roll over, look left, look right. I have that pattern in my brain. So that's all me, but he could do it in any order. My brain gets locked down on a pattern and that's it.
No, I get that. I think that I probably do tricks in the same order too, and I just don't think about it. But we also aren't to the point where I'm ready to showcase a lot of our tricks. We're still in that polishing phase with a lot of our tricks. I would say that Fitz knows maybe 10 or 15, somewhere in there, maybe about 12, best guess, if I had to just say off the top of my head how many he knows. So we're still in the very, very early stages. What do you think is a trick that every dog should know, and why?
Ooh, that is a good question. Does it have to technically be a trick, or could it be something that falls a little more into the obedience realm?
Like a skill? It would be okay. Obedience skill kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it's always funny. We label certain things as tricks, but any skill that you're teaching your dog, whether it's obedience or something fun, it's all the same thing, right? You're just teaching them something new. But I guess something that I feel very strongly about that everyone should teach their dog is leave it and recall. I can't narrow it down to one. But leave it and recall, I think, are two just absolutely critical things to teach any dog. And the leave it being, if you're walking past another dog, you say leave it. They should bring their attention back to you, make eye contact with you. Or, God forbid, you drop some food in the kitchen that is not good for your dog to have. You say leave it, and they stop. And they look at you. They don't eat the slice of pizza that just dropped on the floor, and they leave it alone. You pick it up and throw it away. So it's just about safety. And then recall, again, that falls into the safety category, which I know they're not fun tricks, but to me, those are just the 2 top things that to me are so important and should just be the main things. Obviously, get all your tricks and all that fun stuff is great to mix in when they're a young dog and you're teaching that stuff. So that way you build that relationship. I think the trick training is so great because it's fun. It's stress-free. You're not putting that pressure on yourself or the dog. It's just something silly. My dog doesn't need to know how to open and close a door, right? That's not essential. So it's just fun to teach it. You build the relationship, and that gives you a break from the recall and the leave it stuff that you might be putting more pressure on yourself trying to teach. It's just a nice, mix those things up. But I'd say those 2 are the most important things in my mind.
I'd have to agree. I definitely think that leave it is something that we probably use, I think, every day in this house, because Toby is always trying to eat something that he shouldn't be eating. And recall is great, even if we're in the backyard, which is fenced in, and there's another dog that's walking by or whatever, and I can call them away to just refocus on me and continue playing instead of barking at the thing that's going by, the truck, the person, the cat, whatever it is that's out there wandering around. And like you said, safety. I think safety first should always be a priority, no matter what we're working on. If it's not safe for the dog, then we shouldn't be doing it. And that's actually something that you've talked about more recently on your page about Han being older and you not wanting to do certain things like his jumps and his flips and stuff anymore, just because of his age and his back, and not putting that pressure on those joints. And I mean, sure, yes, he can still do them here and there occasionally, but I love that you take into account his health and mobility above creating content. You're not taxing him to create content for others. You can go back into your archives, I'm sure, and use old footage or pictures or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like Han flying through the air pictures. Those are all from years ago. And that's what I recently did post on some of them because, yeah, that thought crossed my mind. I was like, I probably should tell people these are throwback photos. And the main reason for that being that he's still fully capable of doing that. If I asked him to do a backflip, he'd do a backflip. But I'm not going to because he's 8 years old. I just think that's not a good idea to do that. Even when he was 3 years old, he will literally do that on cue. If you throw the Frisbee the right way, he's going to do a backflip. Even back then, it was like once in a great while, we'll do this, snap some pictures. It's not every day, let's do this repetitively because it's taxing on their body. There's no need for that. I try to be very aware of his body. He's my number one priority, his health and his happiness, not likes on a picture.
No, I agree. Again, health, safety, and injury. The last thing you want is to tax his body to the point where now he can't even do any tricks at all because he's injured. And that's not fun for anybody at all.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say I definitely am mindful of what I ask him to do as tricks and being aware of his age and everything. He's in great shape for being an 8-year-old dog, but now it's just the cattle dog personality of I've got to do everything at 200%. So we're just playing basic fetch in the backyard. And I try to be very careful about how I throw the Frisbee or the ball because he will still fly into the air, even though that's not what I'm trying to do if the wind catches that Frisbee the right way. So I'm trying to be very careful, throw everything low.
High drive dogs are something else. Fitz has really taught me he has no limit. There is no limit for him. He will go until he is silly and he cannot even hardly stand up. And then he'll still keep trying to go. And I'm like, dude, you need to just lay down for a minute. Does Han have a hard time winding down, or do you have a routine that helps him with that?
So not anymore. He used to when he was younger. I'd say those first 3 years, we were working on a lot of stuff, and him learning to just relax and be chill in the house definitely took some time. He was never the type that wouldn't go to sleep at night, thankfully. So he was pretty easy in that regard. We were very good about keeping a routine. So he knew, okay, at night I go into my crate, I go to sleep. And he never was the type to whine or cry over that, which was fantastic. But in the evenings, like dinner time, whatever, still up and moving around, doing things, would be kind of a little bit antsy at times. That's where just making sure we're truly meeting his exercise needs as a high energy herding breed. So yeah, we were at work all day and it's dark outside at 5 p.m. when you get home in the winter, but I still need to go in the backyard with my dog and bundle up in my coat, and we're going to play Frisbee for a half hour, and then we'll take a break, probably eat dinner, and then after that we're going in the basement and we're doing our trick training. I'd say that's where the trick training really became this driver to help with his overall behavior, because he needed the physical stimulation of running around in the backyard, but just as important for him as a cattle dog is that mental stimulation and tiring out his brain and getting that thinking through complex things. He truly needs that. Even though it's fun, I find it fun. I love it. He loves it. It's also, honestly, if you have a breed like a cattle dog, I'd say it's a requirement. You need to meet that mental stimulation. And we were able to do that through the trick training. So then we do that, and then he'd be like, okay, I'm good. I'm chill for the night. Go lay on the couch.
Still struggle to find the balance for Fitz, but he just continually surprises me because he just turned 7. And some days we'll get the right amount. We go for a walk. We've played fetch 3 times. He's got like 6 miles of steps in. And then we do tricks, and he's had a bully stick and a lick mat and all the things. And then he lays down in the bed and he does this like, I'm like, dang
not
dude,
good enough, Mom.
We're still not done? Like, why are we not done yet? And it is hard at 5 o'clock when it's dark. And I have a big backyard, so throwing the ball at a certain point in this not even backyard, I don't want to hurt myself either. I don't want to break my ankle trying to navigate the backyard situation. But I did buy a snowsuit this year because in the winters is usually when he's the craziest because we were not satisfying those needs. So this year I bought a snowsuit and we've been going outside. And honestly, I think it's better for my mental health too, because I'm getting up and I'm still staying active and we're still doing things. It definitely keeps us more in a rhythm. But I agree. I think that mental stimulation for those high energy, especially herding breed dogs, where they have so much drive and they have so much oomph all of the time. You give them a 5-minute nap and all of a sudden here we go. We're ready to go again.
Yep.
So I think that having something to be able to break that up with is really, really helpful. And it really has been kind of a game changer for us too, because every night I have learned that at the end of the night, when we go out for the last time, that's when I'll have him run through his tricks, and we'll do them by the back door in the kitchen. And I'll say, okay, it's time for bed. We're going to go hang out. And then I will run him through all of his tricks. Then by the time he does that, then I'll do like a little food scatter on the floor for him. And then when he's done with that, then he'll go and lay down in the bed. And then, like I said, sometimes it's not good enough and he has something to say about it.
He still has to give you the evil eye.
He's got words. Does Han have words? Does he have a little attitude thing that he does?
So he every once in a while will it reminds me more of a husky. He'll do these yelping, yodely, whining sounds, but it's not a bark, it's not a howl, it's somewhere in between, and he's trying to tell us something. Usually he's yelling at us because it's time to eat and you're 10 minutes late for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I guess he probably honestly sounds most like a Chewbacca sound. It'd probably be like a higher Chewbacca sound, which is funny because his name's Han Solo.
That is hilarious. And now I feel like you need to send me a recording of this because I think I need to hear this sound.
I will have to. That's why, and it'll be very easy to get because if I just am like 5 minutes late on that meal time, he'll do it. So
it's so funny. I posted a Threads post the other day and I said, tell me something that your dog taught you. And somebody responded that dogs can actually tell time. I was like, yes. They can. They can.
Oh, yes.
They don't know what the hour or the minute is, but dang it, they know the time of day by the position of the sun and the light. And
they know how much time has passed.
Yes, they can sense all of those things. That's part of being an animal in that natural world thing. So I just thought that was really funny because it's so true. They thrive on consistency. Fitz really thrives on consistency. So I just think that it's funny that Han is, excuse me, things are not happening in the right order. I want to talk a little bit about the basketball. I think the one that just fascinates me the most. I mean, not that the skateboarding isn't cool. The skateboarding is really freaking cool, but I've seen other dogs do skateboarding. There's a bulldog that skateboards, and I know I've seen a couple other healers.
I've seen some corgis.
Yeah, I've seen other dogs do skateboards. But Han just looks cool skateboarding. But it was the basketball one for me because he can seriously bounce that ball so high off of his nose. It was just shocking to me. How long do you think it took you to teach him that?
So that's another one that my husband taught him initially, and he just figured out utilizing the herding drive. You throw that ball up in the air and he wants to run and nip at it and hurt it. Then it's just a matter of you as the person throwing it up at the right angle to get that. And that, like a day. With the basketball one's interesting because I know people love that one. It's not one that's like consistent, right? Because it's such a combination of things that have to happen correctly. If you were to come stand in my driveway and throw the ball, he'll sit there and shoot hoops with you over and over again. Is it going to actually get in the basket every time? No. You're probably going to get 1 out of 15 goes in the hoop. The other ones are all bouncing in the area of the hoop, bouncing off the backboard and stuff like that. But have to throw it at just the right angle, and then he has to jump up at just the right time and hit that with his nose at just the right angle to get it into the hoop. But he definitely understands what the goal is and what we're doing. It's just really hard.
I imagine the amount of precision that it would take for that and timing. I don't think that Fitz could ever do that, but I think that it's just really cool that you figured it out because I can't hardly shoot a basket by myself, let alone try to teach my dog how to do it. And then, like you said, the right angle, the right timing, because if he boops it in the wrong, even if you throw it at the perfect angle, if he boops it from the wrong side or whatever, then the ball is not going to go in the basket. It's going to go a different direction.
Yeah. And I will say another thing that's key with that one is the right ball. So we do not use a basketball because that's way too hard, even though he totally, if I would let him, would be like, let me do this with a basketball. But I'm like, no, that's going to damage your face. Not a good idea. So it's literally, we use the cheapest little thin bouncy balls that you get in a big bin at the dollar store that little kids play with. So it's super, super lightweight and very, very bouncy. And then it's soft. That was another key that I left out with getting that trick for it to work. So don't use a real basketball.
Again, consideration for your dog and your dog's health and safety. Again, that's so, so, so important. There are so many people out there that don't understand or don't think about those things. And it's so important when you're doing things like that with your dog. Even learning to ride a bike with your dog, that could be considered a trick because not every dog, like you said, wants to run by the bike. Like, what's the point of this? Or you could have had the opposite thing happen where Han's like, oh, it's a moving target. I'm supposed to hurt this and knock you off of your bike.
Yes.
And now you're in a bad situation. Potentially he is too. So making sure you take safety precautions and everybody's going to be okay. I really like that you're considerate when it comes to your pet's well-being. I really like that. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Oh, the ring stacking. That one is fun too.
Oh,
did
yeah.
you teach him how to stack the rings in order? Because I've noticed sometimes he stacks them in the right order, and then other times you have that one that's, I'm guessing it's some kind of baby toy that has different colored ones and different patterns and stuff on it. And they don't always go on in the right order. So it looks kind of wonky. So did you teach him to do it in a specific order, or do they just kind of go on however he feels like it?
So I have two different ones. They're both baby toys. I have lots of toys in my house that are for children's, probably 1 through 4, that are for my dogs. Again, crazy dog mom. One of the ring stackers, they have to go on in a certain order. It starts with the biggest ring at the base and then gets smaller as they go up. And then the newer one that I've been posting with more lately, all the rings are exactly the same size. So they can go on in any order, which is really nice. And the reason I bought the new one wasn't actually to do with the ring size, was because the older one I had, where the rings go from big to small, the base is wobbly. It's a purposely wobbly base, which is probably great for a little kid, but not great for a dog. So I always had to hold that base for him. So I was like, I'm going to buy one with a flat base because I know he can do this 100% without me at all if the base wasn't wobbling back and forth on him. So that was the main reason I bought that new one. But usually I'll order them a little bit in front of him in the order that I want him to put them onto the stacker, at least with the one that went big to small. Now it doesn't matter. So they're just kind of in lines next to him so he can easily get them, but it doesn't matter the order.
That's so fun. That's another precision one too, because for him to be able to put the ring around the little pole and let it slide down, that's a lot of precision. If somebody wanted to teach that, how would you instruct them to start with that?
The number one thing I would teach, because I'm actually teaching it to Carly now, and she has gotten a couple of rings on a couple times, so we're making some progress. But basically how I've started it with her, and it's really the same thing with Han too, it's just now it's fresh in my mind, is number one, start out teaching your dog to retrieve items, something they're more familiar with, and put it a distance away. With Han, I could just put it a distance away. He'll go pick something up and bring it to me. Carly, I actually have to throw it to kind of build that motivation, like, oh, I'm going to go run and play and get it, because that's fun. So it's a slight variation there, but train that retrieval of items where they're going to bring an item back to you and bring it right back to your hand, not just drop it in the vicinity of you. And as you start out doing that, start out with a ball or a frisbee or a nylabone, something they're familiar and comfortable with picking up, and then slowly migrate it to other things. You could go right to the rings if you want to, but you could also teach them to go get my backpack in the corner and bring it to me. Obviously, have it empty. But once you have that retrieval down, then you switch it over to the plastic rings and then keep your hand right at the base. So your hand should be right next to that base where you want them to drop the ring on. And with Carly, right now she'll bring it and she'll kind of drop it near my hand, but not necessarily on the base, but I reward that. So that's step one. You're getting it. My hand's over here. You know I want it near my hand. My hand is also near the base. And she's starting to make that connection that every time she brings it over closer and closer to the base, she's getting rewards. And then on the rare occasion, she actually gets it onto that little pole and fully onto the base. It's like jackpot of treats, big deal. Oh my God, you're amazing. Make a really big deal over it. And then it's just repeating that process over and over again until she will make that connection that it's like, oh, okay, instead of like, the focus is no longer me bringing it to your hand. The focus is I'm putting it on the base, and then I'm using the new cue word as well. So, because we're at the point now where I started out and I was just like, oh, bring it. That's what they both know is bring an item to me. And I've practiced it with her enough now where we've transitioned to, I'll kind of go throw the ring a little bit 5 feet away. She'll run and go get it. And then she knows to bring it back to me, but then I'll say stack. And that's the new cue word. So that way, eventually, she won't be confused. She'll still know bring it is its own cue and stack is the cue for dropping the rings onto the stacker post.
It's really cool how when we train our dogs certain things, we can kind of incorporate things that they already know to teach them new things. And that, I think, again, shows that kind of resilience in you can tell what the level of resilience is by how quickly they pick it up and transfer it to the new thing. But yeah, then you just slide that new cue word in there and it turns into something else. I think that's really cool. That's really cool. Okay, so your best advice for somebody who's never taught their dogs a trick. Maybe they accidentally have taught their dogs to shake, because I think everybody tries to teach their dogs how to do high five or shake. I know pretty much all of my dogs have been able to do that. But your best advice for somebody who wants to get started and doesn't really know what to do or how to feel about it.
I guess my best advice for someone that's trying to get into more mid-level to advanced trick training, get beyond rollover and paw shaking, is patience and consistency. Those are the two most important things by far with trick training. Because if you're patient, you keep coming back to it, you keep trying, and then you have a consistency in the fact that, okay, 3 times a week, we're going to do 3 10 or 15-minute sessions working on this. If you've got those two ingredients, then you're probably going to be making some progress on a lot of stuff. There might be the occasional trick where you need to rethink how you're teaching it, because maybe however you're thinking about it, your dog isn't thinking about it that way. You got to break it down a different way. That's, of course, going to happen on occasion. But for the most part, the patience and consistency are the two most key things to have. And then just that mindset of thinking about, okay, in my mind, I'm teaching my dog to sit pretty, because that's probably one that we think in our head, oh, that's super easy. But think about just lifting their front legs up, in my mind, is one step. To teach sit pretty, that's probably going to be an 8 to 10 step process to do that, and just have that patience, consistency, and break things down as small as possible. And you're going to reward all those small steps. And once you complete that, you'll have the full trick at the end.
Yeah, repetition really is a thing with dogs. The more often you do it with them and they complete the task, the better it seems to sink in. And like you said, take those breaks, reward every time, even if it's not quite right. I'm not so picky as to where I'm like, you didn't do it all the way right, I'm not going to reward you. I might tell them to try again and see if I can get a little bit better placement on something, but I'm not going to not reward him if he doesn't get it right the next time. I believe that there's close enough sometimes, because when you're learning, I like to be encouraged when I'm learning. I don't want to feel like I'm failing, and your dog is going to get frustrated too if you don't help them through some of those tougher moments. And you really seem to be able to do that really well with both of your dogs.
Yeah, that's super important. You need to reward progress, right? It's not about just getting that perfect trick at the end. It's rewarding the progress, because just if they're trying and it's like, okay, they've made that 0.5 step in the direction of what I'm thinking that they should do right now for me to teach this trick, reward it, because that's helping them stay motivated. But also you should acknowledge that you're encouraging them, hey, you are starting to do the right thing. And yeah, that's just huge, right? Because it's, exactly like you said, like if I'm in school, like there's no way I'm going to know, well, I'm terrible at math, so that's a terrible example, but I'm not going to know calculus right away, right? But I should be getting positive motivation for the fact that, 2 + 2 is 4. That's a new thing that I've just figured out. Okay, I should be getting rewarded for that because I'm making steps in the direction on this journey of whatever my end goal is. So yeah, definitely always reward progress. And then once they have a trick down solid 100% and you know that, then you can be more picky. Han knows how to roll over 100% both directions. So if I ask him to roll over and he kind of goes halfway and is just chilling looking at me, I might be like, okay, let's try it again. Nothing negative, no upset voice or anything. Just, hey, yeah, come on, let's go. Let's do it again. Give it another shot. And then he does it and he gets his nice little cookie.
And I think that that's great, because if we don't keep it positive, they're not going to want to come back to it.
Yep.
There's no point in that. There's no point in letting them get frustrated about it. Okay, so the last one that we can talk about is the stacking, because Han is like the stack master. I cannot get Fitz to sit still long enough to get one cookie to stay on his nose, But Han is the king of stacking. How many cookies can he keep on his nose now, or his face, or wherever? His paws. You stack them everywhere.
Yes, yeah. I think the highest, and this might be off by a few cookies, so I apologize if anyone double checks my Instagram, but I want to say roughly around 34 or 36, somewhere in that range, is the most probably that we've done. Most recently, probably maybe 6 months, definitely within the past year. Added now, he will hold them in his mouth at the same time as having 10 stacked on his head. So that's been the newest variation of that one, which has been fun.
Okay, so best tip for type of cookie to start with, because I think that may be part of the struggle.
Yes, so definitely you want a big cookie, what I'd consider a big cookie, not a giant one, because some of these dog bakeries have these huge ones, not that, but Cloudstar Pet Treats makes these cookies that are for dogs, but they literally just look like a golden Oreo, and it's the same size and shape as an Oreo. Those are a really nice size. So I'd say use that as a reference point maybe. Don't give your dog Oreos, God no, but that size or slightly bigger than that is a really nice, and make sure it's a flat, round cookie. And that's going to give you more surface area. It's not going to flop off super easily. Where if you're using little training treats and stuff like that, that's going to be really hard to keep on top of their head in a stack, right? If you're doing an individual treat, you can do any size. But if you want to start stacking 3 or 4 treats, go for those bigger, round, flat cookies. And that's going to really help you, because then it's easier for the dog to balance them. Where if you're using ones that have a funky shape to them, or they're really small, trying to stack it in my own hand, right? That's going to be hard and it's going to wobble.
That's a really good visual. The Oreo is a really good visual, because that gives a perfect size and shape to start with. And if there are dog cookies that are that size, that's a great tip. Where would you start with the stacking? Would you start on the paw, the head, or the nose?
I would start on the floor, not even on them. So I would put a couple pieces of their regular kibble or something. I'm thinking starting at ground zero. The dog might even be struggling with impulse control on a treat being on the floor in front of them. That could potentially be too much for some dogs. So I would start with their kibble that they eat every day, so it's a little less exciting. Put it on the floor near their paws. And depending on the dog, if even that's hard, put more distance. Put that little pile of kibble like 3 feet away from them if you need to. It's all about building a wait cue. So I should, in theory, be able to say wait and walk out of the room, not for a long period of time, but walk out of the room, be out of sight and come back, and that kibble's still there. And just work on building that, where reward, okay, that kibble's on the floor 3 feet from you, and I told you to wait, and you waited 1 second. Reward that, great. And then bring the kibble over to them and let them have it. Or you could pick that kibble up, and it could be always that kibble's not part of the reward. I'm giving the reward from my treat bag, especially to help in the beginning. And then the kibble gets closer, right? So then eventually it is actually maybe a couple treats on the paws. So it's very easy to do. It's not really a balancing situation. And then if they keep them on their paws for, again, 1-2 seconds, reward that right away. And it could even be with some dogs, depending on how much self-control they have to start out. You could reward for a half second to start out. And then you slowly build that to 10, 20, 30, 40 seconds. And then you get to that point eventually where you're able to do it on their head. You can stack them up in stacks of 10 on their nose and their head and everything. And you've built up that wait cue where they're really, really solid on, okay, my mom told me to wait. I'm going to wait here until I get that release word. And I know that. Just chill. And that they're going to get the reward at the end, right? Because they know that no matter what. It's like, okay, you waited for 30 seconds with these cookies on your head. Now I'm going to make a huge deal and you're going to get a bunch of cookies as a reward.
See, you broke that down even farther than I would have. I wouldn't even have thought to start with the cookies just in a different area and work with the weight. And that's a skill that we work on, is weight. And I'm going to place the 3 cookies down, and then on 3, you can get all 3 cookies kind of thing. That's a game that we play. But I would have never thought that would be the first step for that. So that's really cool. That's really cool. I've learned a lot today. So everybody make sure you check out Healer Point on Instagram. Krista constantly has amazing videos of Han and Carly doing all kinds of cool stuff. And it's just really so much fun to follow your account, because I never know what you're going to post. And I always am just so excited when I see a post and Han's face pop up. I'm like, what is it today? So I always get really excited. What would you like to leave the listeners with?
Goodness, that's a lot of pressure. I don't know. I guess for any folks that already follow the account, thank you so much for following the page. It's surpassed my wildest dreams. I remember when I was just like, oh my God, I hope I could get 1,000 followers. So the fact that it's up to 65,000+ is absolutely mind blowing. So thank you so much to everyone that follows the page And honestly, thank you for just being supportive, because I'd say by far 99.9% of any interactions I have are positive and people being kind and encouraging, which is just amazing. And I think we can't have enough of that in this world. So thank you everyone for following us and being positive and supportive. It's amazing. We appreciate everyone that likes, follows, interacts with us in any way. And of course, thank you so much for having us on the podcast and for inviting us and thinking we're cool enough to come on the podcast. It's been great.
Well, I am obsessed with dogs just as much as you are. I'm also a horse girly. I think it's so funny how many of us are horse girlies and dog girlies. It just kind of transcends into this. We are just these crazy people who teach all of our pets tricks, and we want to ride horses and jump barrels and all this. Definitely. Yes. Has been a really cool way to make friends and have those common interests that obviously turn into other common interests as well. So thank you so much for taking the time out to chat with me today. And I'll be in touch because I always have questions when it comes to trick training. And you guys listening, make sure that you understand and know that Krista will absolutely help you, and she will direct you to a video that will help you, or she will help you find the way through whatever tough area you are in when it comes to trick training. And we will see you guys next week on Straight Up Dog Talk.
Straight Up Dog Talk was created by Emily Breslin. It is edited and produced under the supervision of Straight Up Dog Talk, LLC, and Emily Breslin. If you're enjoying this podcast, follow or subscribe and be sure you don't miss an episode. And leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Looking for more honest and relatable dog content? Check out our sister show, Unpacked, with Jerry Sheriff and Madison Simpson. Thanks for listening to Straight Up Dog Talk. See you next week.